Okay, so we finished up the first epistle of Timothy, and we're going to move to the second epistle. And I'm going to start again with the study notes that come before the actual biblical text. So this is not scripture, it's just a help for studying. So this is what it says. 2 Timothy is the latest of the Pauline letters. As such, it is of special interest not only because of what it reveals concerning the last days of Paul's life, but also because of what it reveals about its recipient. The historical setting. Paul was freed from his house arrest in Rome in the spring of AD 63 and traveled to Macedonia, see Philippians 2:24, Philemon 22, across the Adriatic Sea, visiting Philippi, Ephesus, Colossae, and Laodicea. The Great Roman Fire occurred in AD 64. Paul possibly went to Spain, probably by sea in AD 64 and 65. In the summer of 66, he returned to Ephesus in Asia Minor and left Timothy in charge. See 1 Timothy 1, verse 3. In the summer of 67, he wrote Timothy from Macedonia and probably visited Philippi and Corinth. He went on to Crete and left Titus there. See Titus 1:5. He wrote Titus from Ephesus in the autumn of AD 67, visited Miletus 4 verse 20, Troas 4 verse 13, Corinth 4 verse 20, and spent some time in Nicopolis, Titus 3 verse 12. He was imprisoned again in the spring of 68, having been free about 5 years. He may have been arrested in Corinth because of an accusation made by Alexander. See chapter 4:14 and verse 20. Paul was tried by the city prefect, imprisoned and sent to Rome, where he was placed in the dungeon cell of the Mamertine prison, from which we knew he would never be set free. Chapter 4 verse 6. His only contact with the outside world was a hole about 18 inches square in the ceiling of his cell. Through that opening passed everything that came to and from the apostle, including his second letter to Timothy in the fall or winter of AD 67. He was beheaded in Rome in May or June of 68. The last words of people are particularly treasured by their loved ones. In 2 Timothy, we have the last known words to flow from the apostle's pen. In a very real way, this epistle represents Paul's last will and testament. If ever there was a time to set the record straight, it was then. If Paul were going to make any complaints, he would have to make them then, for he was at the end of his life. However, in this letter, there was not one word of apology, explanation, caution, or complaint. Paul used his last letter to deliver 5 exhortations to his son in the faith, which in summary tell Timothy to keep on keeping on, just as he had told him all along. Authorship. 2 Timothy claims to have come from the pen of Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, chapter 1, verse 1. Though widely contested, both internal and external evidence support this claim. The style, vocabulary, and contents of the epistle are in keeping with what would be expected of the apostle when he knew he was near the end of his life, chapter 4, verse 6. He had 4 purposes in writing. First, to exhort Timothy of his ministry at Ephesus. Second, to warn Timothy of trouble both inside and outside the church. Third, to request Timothy to come to Rome to visit him in prison and bring certain personal effects to him. See chapter 4, verses 5 to 13 and 21. And fourth, to instruct all the churches in Timothy's territory. And then there's an outline of 2 Timothy. And so in chapter 1, verses 1 through 4, chapter 4 and 8, we see exhortations to Timothy. Exhortation to loyalty, preparation for the exhortation, presentation of the exhortation, illustrations of the exhortation, and then exhortation to endurance and the different areas of endurance, examples of endurance, principles of endurance, and then exhortation to orthodoxy, orthodoxy in relation to teaching, orthodoxy in relation to false doctrine, and orthodoxy in relation to personal conduct. Exhortation concerning apostasy. So then there's instruction about the coming apostasy, preparation for the coming apostasy, exhortation concerning ministry as well, concerning his professional conduct in the ministry, and concerning his personal conduct in the ministry. And then the conclusion is chapter 4 and verses 9 through 22, where Paul makes personal requests, a word about Alexander, Paul's recollections and assurances, Paul's greetings and information, and a benediction. And that is the notes prior to getting into 2 Timothy. And the next video will be about chapter 1 and 2.